Today is Sunday, September 6th, 2020. This is Flashpoint. Hi, everybody. Welcome to Flashpoint. I'm Jason Colthorpe. Devin is off this week. For thousands of Metro Detroit students, week one of this strange school year is now complete. Thousands more will be going back on Tuesday. The COVID-19 pandemic forced districts and parents to make some tough choices, whether to learn from home or face-to-face or some combination of both. It seems like every choice has its drawbacks and challenges already, and we are just getting started. We'll talk about the state of the school year so far. And if you worked in an office building downtown, chances are your commute is canceled because of COVID. So what does working from home mean for the commercial real estate market? And progress on some of those high-profile projects that are going up in Detroit. We'll talk about what's on pause and who's moving ahead with the CEO of the Detroit Economic Growth Corporation. But first, this week, the U.S. Attorney for Michigan's Eastern District brought fraud charges against a man accused of scamming to get COVID relief meant to save small businesses. We'll talk to U.S. Attorney Matthew Schneider about that case, plus federal agents in Detroit as part of Operation Legend. It's a busy Labor Day weekend edition ahead on Flashpoint. U.S. Attorney Matthew Schneider always has a lot on his plate, and we're always glad to have him on Flashpoint to talk about that. And he's back again this Sunday morning. Great to see you. Let's jump right into Operation Legend, and the federal agents being in Detroit has been a controversial thing right from the start, but let's back up and just, how many came to Detroit and what is actually their role here?
So it's important to note what Operation Legend is and also what it's not. So Operation Legend is designed all across the country to bring additional federal resources and agents to help cities that are afflicted by the increase in violent crime. That's all that it is, and we have seen great progress in the city of Detroit. Right from the start, we were able to take body armor and cocaine and heroin and assault rifles and high-capacity magazines out of the hands of drug dealers, armed drug dealers. We're able to get them off the streets and get those folks who are trigger pullers, who are murderers. Literally, we have homicide cases that we've picked up, and we're working with their partners in the Detroit Police Department, and we're able to work on those cases. Now, you know, what it's not, of course, it's not any interfering in anybody's right to protest. This is our way of trying to help the community. It's trying to help keep our streets safer. It's trying to help our neighborhoods and making sure that the people who are out there on the streets, who are literally murdering people each and every day, we're trying to, across the country, get those people into a place where the victims can achieve justice.
I know Detroit police originally, when this was raised by President Donald Trump, kind of scoffed at the idea we don't need any help. But then I believe the police chief came around on it because of how you're framing this. If given the success it sounds like you're having with them, would these agents possibly become permanent? And could they ever assist Detroit police if they had trouble on the streets with crime?
Well, they're assisting the Detroit police right now. That's exactly what's going on. The DEA, ATF, and FBI, they're working with Detroit police. And I certainly hope that they are permanent. And I know that some of them will be permanent because we need this help in Detroit. And look, at the beginning, I think people said, well, what is this all about? This is just the president coming and interfering. This is no different from what Barack Obama did. What President Obama and Attorney General Eric Holder, when they were in office, they made sure that people in Detroit and the FBI, DEA, and ATF worked with the Detroit Police Department. We are doing the same thing. We are doing more of it because there is more of a need, and we're doing it more precisely, and we're taking more money into Detroit. We're sending more money there for law enforcement. We're in fact paying the salaries of 15 Detroit police officers. We're giving grants to make sure that we can have shot spotter technology to find out where these gunshots are coming from. So we're just enhancing what has been done in the past.
Yeah, and let me jump into some of the specific cases that this might be helping, starting with something that broke this week, a man who is now facing charges for a COVID scam, and I believe it was more than $3 million. Can you break down the scam, and correct me if I'm wrong, this is not the only one that you're seeing. It feels like we've seen several of these.
We have, in fact. Unfortunately, what we have in a situation where we have a pandemic, and so Congress has decided they need to allocate money. And in fact, they've allocated billions of dollars into Michigan to help small businesses, to help the unemployed. And they've allocated the money to come here so that people can get some relief. But anytime anyone from the government gives out money, there's going to be some scammer there trying to steal it away. And that's what's happened. We've had a number of cases where people are stealing the unemployment benefits, where they're scamming the system, they're taking away the paycheck protection loans. And this pot of money that we've received from Congress, it's only so large. So when that money runs out for the small businesses, that money is gone. So if you have somebody, and we've seen this numerous times, you have somebody stealing that money away and diverting it, that means that some business, some bakery, some small shop in your town is not getting the money. And that's really sad. And really too bad.
Yeah, and I know law enforcement officials like yourself will say, you know, they want to remain professional. But when you think about that and all the businesses we've seen already go under that couldn't get this money or even went under after getting this money, do you take it personally when this is the nature of the scam?
Well, I don't take anything personally in my job because I'm not allowed to do that, and I don't need to. However, I know that I need to look out not just for any particular residents. I need to look out for all sorts of residents in the state of Michigan. Business owners, the unemployed, people who are struggling to get food on the table. I mean, if you steal somebody's unemployment benefits and they can't get those benefits, they can't buy food for their families. They can't buy meat. They can't buy bread. They can't buy food. I mean, that's what we're really up against. We're up against the people who use a pandemic who just don't care. Yeah. They're trying to steal money away, and it really harms people who need it the most.
Yeah, and some of those people are union workers. We saw this week, I believe Dennis Williams is the 15th person in this huge investigation into the UAW to be brought up on charges. Several have already pleaded guilty. You called it disheartening overall this week. Tell me why.
Well, I think it's worse than that, because this isn't just a situation where we have a couple corrupt people in the union or a couple corrupt people in the company, or you've got just a few officials in the union who are corrupt. This is the second vice president of the International Union, not the first, the second that we've charged with federal crimes, with corruption crimes. So if you look at the unions, you know, what they're doing is not working. If your question is, do we need reforms? I think it's pretty obvious. It shouldn't have to take a second president of the union to be indicted and to be facing federal charges for somebody to say, this current system isn't the way it's supposed to be. Yeah. We need to turn this union around so that it serves the men and women who work there.
I've got about 20 seconds. Any chance the government would take over the UAW to get that reform?
Look, I don't want to run the union. That's not my goal. What I want is the union to run itself. We need to put in place a union that works for the members and that is not corrupt. And if that means some level of government oversight, so be it.
All right. U.S. Attorney Matthew Schneider, thanks for your time this morning. We always appreciate it. We'll talk back to school in a moment. Stay with us.
It's the biggest Labor Day sale ever at Gardner White. Save up to 75% store-wide. Free delivery on everything. Plus, free bikes and free laptops. Plus, save an extra 15% off the sale price. Plus, no tax. Plus, 0% for 20 months. Or 0% for 60 months. Bedrooms at $15 a month. Living rooms at $14 a month. And dining rooms at $10 a month. Get the lowest prices of the year at the biggest Labor Day sale ever at Gardner White. Detroit's new #1 furniture store.
Time is running out to complete the census. For every person who doesn't fill it out, we lose approximately 1,800 per year in federal funding.
That's $18,000 we lose over the next 10 years. That's money needed for Medicaid and Section 8 public housing and other city services.
Not to mention what we need to rebuild and recover from COVID-19.
Be counted and fill out your census today. Wayne County
And Detroit are counting on you.
It's the biggest Labor Day sale ever at Gardner White. Sunday, shop and save up to $1,000 off the largest selection of top name brand mattresses in Detroit. Plus free same-day delivery, free TVs, free box springs, with 0% financing up to 72 months. Serta any size, $76. Get the lowest prices of the year at the biggest Labor Day sale ever at Gardner White, Detroit's new #1 mattress store. Sunday 11 to 8.
By this Tuesday, just about everyone will be back to school, whether that means leaving the house or not. Every district and every family has had to make tough choices this year. So what has the pandemic revealed about our education system? My next guest is Erin Einhorn. She's a reporter who writes a lot about education and the resource and racial disparities that accompany it. She's a national reporter for NBC News, and before that was the founding editor of Chalkbeat Detroit. Erin, great to have you with us this morning. What are you hearing about how the back-to-school journey is going so far, and has it exposed the racial disparities many thought it would?
I mean, I'm not hearing a lot of enthusiasm about how great it's going. I can say that for sure. And actually, my kids went back to school virtually last week, and I can tell you from, first-person experience, it's not going well. It's definitely going to be challenging. This is obviously, there are very few schools, very few teachers, very few parents who will tell you that, this is that this is what we want, that we're that it's going well, or that it's serving all children well. And you asked about racial disparities, economic disparities, and for sure, the kids with the fewest resources are the ones who are going to struggle the most.
Yeah, and as the summer went on and we were building up to this, and I talked to or covered at least a few stories of school districts having those battles, and it really was kind of disheartening to hear how it was parents versus teachers in a lot of ways. Do you feel like that can be remedied, or how is that relationship going to, I guess, be more amplified as a lot of kids are going from home?
I mean, to some extent, it's parents versus teachers. I mean, to other extents, it's parents versus themselves. I mean, in districts that do have a choice, and not all districts do. So, in Michigan, I think it's like 25% of districts aren't offering a in-person option at all, right? Or maybe it's somewhat less than that. But so there's some districts where it's got to be virtual. You don't have a choice. There's some districts, particularly up north, where in-person is the only option. The majority of districts are giving parents a choice, right? You can either, and some of it's hybrid, maybe it'll be 2 days in the classroom and 3 days at home, or you can choose between 5 days in the classroom and 5 at home. And, within a family, right, you might have one parent who's got a pre-existing condition, or a grandparent who lives in the home who might be at high risk for getting the coronavirus. But at the same time, the family might know that, their child is struggling to learn to read, or their child has special needs and really needs that in-person attention. All kids really need that in-person attention. I don't think anyone's going to dispute that, with the exception of a small minority of kids who might thrive somehow online. Most kids really need to be in school. And so within every family, you've got to make these choices. Is my child's education worth exposing my family to that risk? And with teachers, they might not have a child, so it's is my job worth exposing me and my family to that risk? And it's just really hard choices that we're all having to grapple with. And I think, until we get out, until the pandemic's over, I don't know that school will ever really be what it should be without that anxiety level.
Sure. And as a parent, I want to ask what your biggest, because you said it's not going great yet for your kids, but what's your biggest fear? And as a reporter, how do you see this playing out as we go through the school year?
I mean, my biggest fear as a parent, of course, is that it'll be a lost year. I think, and I hear that I've been talking to a lot of parents in Detroit and around the country who are just saying, yeah, is my kid going to learn anything this year? I mean, in my case, my kids are little, right? I have a first grader and a third grader. And the first grader, we put the Zoom meeting in front of him and he just clicks leave meeting and he's out, right? Like, I don't know how I don't know. We're still trying to figure out. I mean, it was the first week for him. Hopefully he'll come around. But and this is, and I, my family, we're home. My husband and I are both working from home. There's two parents. We have the Wi-Fi and we have the devices. We have all the things we need to make it work. And we're struggling, right? Now imagine it's a single parent who's got a job working the night shift or isn't home during the day or doesn't have, that data connection or doesn't have the device or spotty internet, right? So you sign in for your class and it's not going to connect. And then you have teachers, right? A lot of teachers are being asked to teach their class both to the at-home kids and the in-the-room kids. So they have to essentially write the curriculum twice because you can't just stand in front of a camera and teach the same class online that you would in the classroom. It's got to be different if you're going to do it well. And, some districts have invested in training their teachers for this. Others didn't have the resources. Others didn't have time. Some districts were planning to go face-to-face right up until a couple of weeks ago when they pulled the plug on that. And it's just been, it's been really hard for schools to plan without really knowing, what things were going to happen. And even actually districts that have opened, they could have an infection, they could have a positive case next week and then they'll suddenly be virtual. And then they've planned for in-person, the teachers wrote curriculum for in-person, and now they're not going to be in person anymore.
Yeah.
So, I don't think anybody has the answer on what it should look like because, I think everyone's just hoping it'll end.
Right. I think it's fun to think of kids, playing around and not getting the Zoom meeting, but scary when you think these are extremely tough times that they really need that. I've got about 30 seconds. Let me just quickly ask you, the schools or the districts that are in-person learning that have really pushed forward, do we really think they have a plan if an outbreak happens there?
It's going to be district by district. I know districts had to submit plans to the state, and of course they've got to have the masks and the social distancing. There's those guidelines they have to follow. They have to have a plan for an infection. But, like everything, some districts are going to be better prepared than others. Yeah. And, some have more resources than others. And that's how our school system works. Yeah. So we'll have to see what happens. And I'm sure we're going to hear lots and lots of complaints. Probably the places where it is going well, we may not hear, they may not make as much noise. So we'll assume there's some where it's going to go perfectly. But yeah. We should all, brace ourselves.
We're definitely bracing ourselves and rooting for kids for sure. Erin, thanks so much for joining us. We appreciate your time. We will dig into where major development projects in Detroit stand right after this.
It's the biggest Labor Day sale ever at Gardner White. Line up Sunday, 11 a.m. for $50 gift cards. Save up to 75% store-wide. All with free delivery on everything. Plus, free bikes and free laptops. Plus, save an extra 15% off the sale price. Plus, no tax. Plus, 0% for 20 months. Or 0% for 60 months. Win a $5,000 room makeover. Get the lowest prices of the year at the biggest Labor Day sale ever at Gardner White. Detroit's new #1 furniture store. Sunday, 11 to 8.
Some may wonder how Apartments.com has helped more renters find their place than any other site by digitally upgrading every one of our employees physically. Ooh. Now, everybody at Apartments.com can and does give 110%. Apartments.com. The most popular place to find a place.
What is the pulse of Michigan less than 2 months from Election Day? It's a presidential race like no other. Who's coming out on top? The motivation to vote is stronger than ever. Join us Tuesday as Local 4 News reveals the latest poll about how Michigan voters feel on Local 4 News at 5. Political coverage that matters.
Rely on the Trust Index, your first line of defense against disinformation. Just look for the seal. It's true means it passed the test and we can back it up. The Trust Index, only on Local 4 and Click on Detroit.
The pandemic put construction projects on pause and hit businesses hard. So joining me to talk about all of that is the president and CEO of the Detroit Economic Growth Corporation, Kevin Johnson. And Kevin, great to see you again. I want to jump right in with a conversation I feel like I've had several times, almost on a weekly basis, which is with so many companies realizing they can succeed with their workers at home. What does that mean for the future of skyscrapers in downtown Detroit, or that office space in those high-rise buildings?
Well, Jason, thanks for allowing us to talk today, and I'm excited about sharing what we're monitoring every day, and that is just that question. The fact of the matter is, we don't see that it significantly impacts commercial office space usage in the downtown corridor or any other office environment in the city of Detroit. What we are really paying attention to is how do they utilize the space in a way that is sensitive to the COVID environment that we're in, that it builds upon the need for contact with your coworkers, and how can we better align, our structure. When I mean our structure, I mean, how do we take the assets that we have and make sure that they're propping up and creating this vibrant downtown office scene that we saw prior to COVID had a lot of momentum. So those are the three things that we're looking at. And I think very significantly, the way in which developers and those who are responsible for configuring this office space to invite us back in is going to be the winner when it's all said and done.
Yeah, when you think about that, the future of commercial real estate really is kind of intriguing on that. But I'm kind of catching a little bit of what you're saying there, that human interaction is never going away. It's always going to be integral to the business model, correct?
You're correct. The human interaction, body language is a thing, right? Having a conversation face to face is a thing. Getting instantaneous responses is important. Being able to walk down from one office to the other, or one cubicle to the next to get an opinion is very important. And you can't schedule everything. Some things have to happen in a spontaneous fashion. And for that, I think that human contact and human interaction is going to be the reason why office spaces are going to live and thrive well into the future.
Before I let you go, I want to definitely get your take, at least an update, the way you see it on some of the projects that were caught in the middle of this pandemic, that are kind of on pause but going forward. The old train station, the Ford's Central Station, the Hudson's skyscraper is still in the middle of construction. We have District Detroit right next to our studios. We have the Cambria Hotel, and of course we've got the Eastern Market expansion. How do you see all of those moving forward?
Well, we see them going to completion. There hasn't been any indication from the developers of those projects that you mentioned and others that have said, well, we're going to suspend all that work. We're going to take a step back. What I think is happening, Jason, is I think that they are saying, well, if this is the environment that we're working in now, how do we make sure that the space that we're creating is as configured in a way that allows for us to bring our teams back into this space that we're creating, and does it work itself into the way forward versus the way backwards? And I think those conversations are happening, but the physical space itself, there hasn't been any indications from any of those projects that they're going to pull back from Detroit.
And that's really good news. I think even better is something you mentioned or alluded to, is how Google made a huge, or I should say Amazon at the fairgrounds. That's a huge win in the middle of a pandemic.
In the middle of a pandemic, the need to deliver packages has soared. And Detroit and Metro Detroit is a significant market for Amazon. Thus, and so much so that they've, going to build 3.8 million square feet of space with their development partners out of State Fair. Another 1,200 jobs in the city of Detroit, which we obviously need. And then a company like ClearCover, who's in the insurance business, also making a decision to come to the city of Detroit during a pandemic. And some of those things are giving us a lot of confidence that the way in which we are positioning Detroit has a sustainable need, a sustainable desire for companies that need a Detroit location and a Detroit address.
Yeah, there's a lot to look forward to. It's a lot more bright spots out there than people might think. Kevin, thanks so much. We appreciate your time this morning.
Thank you, Jason. Appreciate
Absolutely. Anytime. And thanks to all of you for joining me for Flashpoint. Devin will be back next week. You go have a good Labor Day.